Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the CNN podcast. Cody and
Marcel, what up, bitches?
And then we have a special guest on today's show. His name is Anthony Williams. He is the author of the upcoming book On Borrowed Time. Anthony, how you doing today, man?
Oh, I'm doing great, guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
And we appreciate having you on. I know this has been in the works for a while because, you've sent me some chapters from the upcoming book, and you got quite a story. And we're here to touch on that today and talk about the book and just anything that you want to discuss on the show while you're on.
Oh, awesome, man. Yeah, definitely. Keep me within the guardrails. I can go on for a while, but yeah, the book itself. I think I sent you. I want to say towards the end of last year. I know I had sent you some pieces, but it's because the process of the way that the book got created. That's probably one of the most interesting topics, right?
Yes,
because it's just how it comes on and everything else. So yeah, I think I sent you, but it obviously morphed from that to what it is now, and some of the stuff that I sent you, I think is night and day, right?
Yes, definitely. And the thing about it is, it's well written too. I think it's pretty easy to read, and I think people are gonna really get something out of it too. Because I really like a good story. Whenever I watch a movie or if I read a book myself, I want to get invested into the story, and I think yours is something that people can get invested in.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of it has to do with initially the thought was, create a story. It was more of a therapeutic process for myself initially, right? And that's how it started out, and it was one of those things where, I have a creative background, so going back to a degree in game design, the way the book is laid out, you just said that was absolutely the reason why we chose to do that. And I'm working with a really good friend, Deb, who was helping me shape the book as well. She's doing so much work. She's just a critical part to this whole process as well, because she also taught me different ways to open myself up in being able to express those aspects, and her work on the book as well, as far as just walking alongside me and everything that she's provided has been absolutely amazing, and it's just huge. I got to say that part of the reason why it took so long and it's morphed, she got sick, and she's such a critical part of me and my team, where nothing was going to really move forward without her. So that was the biggest part of it. So, Deborah's a instrumental piece in On Borrowed Time as well.
Yeah, you definitely gotta have a good team around you for sure. With me, I have Marcel, obviously, he's my go-to guy.
I'm his butt buddy.
So he says.
I always treat your butthole nice.
Oh my Lord.
Hey, if there's no judgment. You got to do what you got to do. Whatever works, right? You got to grease the squeaky wheel. That's the only way things go.
Sometimes you got to spit on it.
Oh my God.
Hey, no one ever complains about that.
Exactly.
Good point. But yeah. So let's dive into this here, and I wanted to start off by having you tell our listeners about yourself. When they see the name Anthony Williams, what can they expect to know when you do release this book?
Yeah, so growing up in New Rochelle, New York, born in 1982, so growing up in the 80s was definitely a lot of fun, right? My whole childhood was playing roller hockey and sports, and I have two older sisters, Michelle and Tara, which are, they're some of my best friends. We always had a really tight-knit family. So it was a lot of fun, but left a Catholic school. We grew up Catholic, and so everything revolved around, family and, and God and stuff like that. Those were the aspects of my life. And it was absolutely, if you grew up in the 80s, you can completely understand, right? Kids were so carefree, like at that time. They didn't have the things that, what kids have now. There wasn't all those distractions. There wasn't all those social influences that way. Like it came in different waves. And so my primary focus, man, I'm really competitive. And my primary focus as a kid was to try and be the best hockey player that I possibly could. And, one of your friends, Keith was my best friend in high school, hands down. We met the first days of school, and so I don't, inside the book itself, I don't go too much into high school because everybody's got, you've all read those stories before, right? Those high school parties and everything else. So, my background, I had a lot of fun, absolutely enjoyed graduating Iona Prep, and some of the best years of my life happened in high school. And the relationships that I built and met, the mistakes that I made absolutely shaped me for who I am now. But moved out to California from New York about 10 years ago, so 2008. And part of that is touched upon in the book. And part of my childhood is obviously touched upon in the book. And parents decided in 2001, my parents decided to move up to out of Westchester County and move up to Dutchess County. So this is all post, high school. And I had already made a couple of mistakes in college at that point and came up, parents move up there. So it was like, I think it was August. It was August of 2001. And you know what else happened like the month after, the next month within a full month, in 2000 and when we had the World Trade Centers, right?
Yes.
So
Yep.
just crazy stuff. And life has been crazy from that point forward. Like, this is a big part of the book, right? So I don't want to give all of that away. So sorry to be kind of vague on it. But a lot of that stuff goes into the book of just experiences of what took place in between that time. But 10 years ago, I moved out to California. And I've since, from there, came out here and had my wife, met my wife, had two beautiful children. One of the stories that I'm definitely going to share with you is the second child. And she had a pretty crazy introduction into the world. But in this time, of being out here in California for the last 10 years, I went to college, did it all online, graduated a game design degree, started working with different companies and businesses, and started focusing on a lot of the strategy for those companies and businesses, and helping some in the process of, raising money or getting them to a point of success where they could possibly, take it to market or profit. And that's a lot of the stuff that I've been doing. So I have a bunch of plugs and stuff that I could throw out there for these companies, but a lot of stuff has to do with technology. But the main focus of everything I'm doing right now is this book. And this book really sums up and encapsulates 30, I'll be 37 next week on July 11th. So the first 36 years of my life is encapsulated into this book called On Borrowed Time.
And to touch back up on your high school sports career, Marcel here was pretty active as well with sports in high school. He was on the football team, and he was also a wrestler. Would you say that you were pretty competitive yourself when it came down to sports, Marcel?
Yeah, I would say I was. I was really competitive. I was always, kind of outgoing at times, and then other times, I got the position. I was like, let me relax a little. But most of the time, yeah, even when I was working at McDonald's too for my first job, even in high school, I was so competitive. How fast can I get the sandwiches out? How fast can I get, this done? I wasn't really worried about closes because, working with the cow. Fucking cow. Can we just put it on the grill? Get rid of her. God. But yeah, I also did track a little in high school. But even then, I just really did track to stay in shape. But yeah, I'd say I was even now, like, I have a new job. I work in a factory now. But even then, like, I'm competitive with myself and even the people around me. Like, okay, how fast can I grab this part from the line and put it where it needs to go? How fast can I grab this and, clean up the line? Just kind of bullshit like that. Just trying to keep myself, I guess, competitive. Because I would say kids in my generation, they are so privileged and they have so much just handed to them. I'd say I'm growing up. I was born in the wrong generation. I honestly say that. I mean, it's true. You got all these liberals running around, these fucking millennials too, and they take shit so seriously, or they get so offended. I'm like, you could, like cuss me out, or even just be racist towards me, and I'll look at you and laugh and tell you, good one. I just don't give a shit.
It's definitely changed. I mean, it has definitely changed. And going back, and I think all of us just as humans, right? Because perception is reality.
Exactly.
And part of why I say that is, a lot of stuff that happened that I talk about in the book, perception's reality. And you can really view things the way I viewed and encounter, when I was really young, shaped a lot of different things that I had no idea about, right? And I don't have a psychology degree, and I don't claim to know absolutely everything, but there's certain aspects, man, where you could just feel it. Right. And maybe it's why I'm good at what I do and why that, I'm happy at doing the things that I do because I've accepted it. I've come to grips with it. For a long time, I fought who I was. Right. So like you said, you're competitive and you're outgoing, and I am very outgoing, and I honestly do love people. But the insecurities that come, just in developing that, there's a lot. And sometimes we don't pay attention to that. And sometimes, things get tucked away and we don't take care of them, and then, it spurs out other things later on in our life, right? And that happened with addiction. I don't hide that from people. I don't hide, any of that from people. And that happened not just because I had open heart surgery, not just because I had blood diseases and stuff when I was younger. High school, nobody knew that stuff, right? But I was the jock, and I know now of some things of what people thought of me, and maybe deep down inside I knew, like, I didn't always make the right decisions. I always had a really good heart. I always really did have my best intentions, at the forefront of what I was doing, but I made a lot of mistakes. So in that competitiveness and in that, wanting to be the best, I also didn't hear the word no a lot. Because of what I did with hockey and everything else. And I was playing so much hockey, man. It was unreal. And I had this undeniable, urge just to be the best or do what I could. And I ended up burning out, at a sense, because I just wasn't taking direction the way that I should. Right. And I'm not blaming anybody for that. Like you said, millennials now, it is what it is, right? Every generation changes. Yeah. I do agree that things are exasperated now, that they're really blown out of proportion. Things are polarized in an instant. And that has to do with social media. That has to do with just the fact, I think, that the way the kids are growing up now doesn't exactly exemplify leadership. They more follow before they voice their own opinions. They voice everybody else's opinions until one day that reality sets in, and who's to say what that is for them. But, a lot of times they try and go with the masses of what everybody thinks is cool, what's socially acceptable. And it's not what I feel, and I could be wrong, but I feel that, once these kids actually open their eyes to what is going on out there, I think that humans will want to change, right? Exactly. I think that they'll want to go back with some of that more person interactive, like these things, right? Like podcasts, radio shows, the way that we can access this stuff. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. But I'm a firm believer, regardless of a technical, background degree, I would rather deal with people in a sense. I don't want to live through technology, right? I want it to enhance, what I'm doing, but I don't want to live through technology, and that's just my own personal view. But, I don't know how you guys feel about that. But it's crazy.
Well, I mean, as far as how I feel about that, we spend so much time on our phones and in front of computer screens. It's just why are we doing this? Half the time I just question myself, why do I have a smartphone?
Oh my goodness.
You can't leave the house without it.
Yeah. Oh my
so
goodness.
It doesn't matter.
And I died.
Yeah.
I left it at home and I died the entire day. I was so worried.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, is somebody text me? Is somebody trying to get a hold of me? Come home, 2 notifications from Facebook.
If you think about it, it affects a lot of what we do,
It really
right?
does.
So it affects it. First of all, it affects all of our problem solving, our ability to adapt, our ability to overcome, obstacles. That's what this book is about. It's about the fact, like, I don't have a famous name, right? You said it in the beginning. What do people want to know about you? What people want to know about me was that I had a hell of a life. I'm not pointing fingers. You know, what happened to me at a young age, I'm not pointing fingers. You can read about that one in the book. You know, it's a story that I think, you've read it, right? You've read the pieces, Cody, so
yes.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And inside that part, I say it explicitly. This is not to out anybody. This is not to get revenge. This is simply about awareness. And nowadays, like you said, you can't be funny the same way. Like, look at comedy, man. That's what I grew up on. I mean, Christ, man. Keith and I used to just sit there and have, like, sleepovers in high school, and, like, all day, man. They'd just sit and watch WrestleMania. You know what I mean? Like Shawn Michaels was my dude. Like, I loved the Heartbreak Kid, dude. Like, that guy I loved it. And Stone Cold Steve Austin. All right. So this is a great thing. I gotta go off on the tangent here, right? Mm-hmm. So Keith and I were so much into wrestling, man. We would wrestle each other, like, on the way to the movie theaters, right? Just acting shit out outside, like people, like slamming people into walls, into doors, right? Like doing all this stuff. We were doing the Jackass stuff before Jackass was doing Jackass, okay? and we were having fun, right? But, like, good to Jackass, man. I wish I thought of it, or I wish that I went into that stuff because of what Keith and I were doing, and I got a story to prove it. We're in his house. I forgot exactly what year it was. I think it was sophomore year. And he's got 2 sisters. Love those girls, man. It was really fun. It's like, you think about it now, right? Like, we were so immature and we were just about having fun. And then he's got these 2 younger sisters, and you don't even think about them, right? But then you get older and you're like, not think about them that way. Like, it's not like, oh, we never wanted to talk to them. It's just they were the little sisters, right? And so Keith and I, and I got an absolute love for that man. He's grown so much, even so in the last, like, year, and his abilities. And that's somebody who's super talented. He doesn't even understand the effect that he had on my life, even through high school, because how he was so able, what seems so flawlessly, to be funny, to me, right? And people like that, and we, like, it was a different kind of comedy that Keith brought to my life when growing up, because, like, I was all about, like, George Carlin, I was all about Eddie Murphy, right? And then Keith kind of brought that, like, that other side, man. We used to love watching, like, Opie and Anthony and guys like that, and he brought, like, Howard Stern. Like, I wasn't a big Howard Stern fan, and he brought, like, guys like that. Like, Keith opened up a whole nother realm to, like, what was funny, right? Like, that cynical funny. And I tried so hard to just be the funniest guy in the room all the time. And then when I was with Keith, I'm like, damn, this guy's good, right? Like, this guy's funny. And it just sparked that fun. Really, we could do anything, man. We never got mad at each other. So back to the wrestling story, because this goes into it. Man, we were just like, let's get crazy, dude. Let's have fun. I remember power bombing him, dude, or, like, DDTing him on his own bed. And we fall off the bed, dude. We're laughing hysterical. We take, like, a couple minutes break or whatever, man. We're listening to, I think it was, like, Insane Clown Posse at that time, man. Like, just going nuts. And, well, it's just needless to say that the wrestling match left the ring, and we ended up in his sister's bedroom. I think I sweet chin music him, dude, onto their bed or whatever, and then I hit him with a stunner, bro, and we broke the bed. The bed broke as we're there. And, like, yeah, I hit him with a stunner, and, dude, it was the funniest shit. We were dying, but now we had a broken bed. And we're, like, trying to put the bed back up and, like, trying to cover up the mess that we just made. And it was pretty funny. But, I never got in trouble for that. I honestly don't know if he did get in trouble for it or the fam covered up for it. But shout out to his 2 sisters for covering it up for us so that we didn't get in trouble.
I bet you're in trouble now if they hear this.
You know what? They'll laugh. The funny part is they'll just laugh about it. But that was the kind of relationship, man, that I tried to build with people. And I've made my fair mistakes across, growing up, and just,
and I mean,
that's okay. Everybody does.
Just real quick, Because if you think about it, you see, you're laughing about that now. That's something that happened in your past because you were going out, hang out with Keith at your own house, doing shit like that. We have the millennials, stuck on their fucking phones and they just sit around playing on their phones all day. They can't do shit like that anymore. I enjoy spending as fucking much time as I can with Cody because, like, that's the kind of shit we do. We'll sit here, we'll shoot the shit, talk a whole bunch of shit, even just random shit that we can laugh about later on in life. But people my age, they can't exactly do that. They'll be like, oh yeah, I had this, iPhone 10. I dropped it one time and it like just shattered. Like, can you really laugh about that later on though? Because that's like $1,000 phone.
It's not the same. It's not
really
the same.
Isn't.
Cody, you know it too, man. When you look at this, right? Look back. Like, what's their stories now? Oh man, I got 4,000 likes in a month. You know what I mean? Like, that's like, imagine sitting around. Like, are they even going to have a campfire, or is it just going to be like an augmented reality fire on their phone that's just sitting like in the middle of the shit, just popped up, and like they're all just sitting around talking about their social media content from back in 2020?
Well, I remember when this picture got so many damn likes and shares, and I got so many followers because of it. Oh my God! Do you remember? See, that's what it has become, and it's just like
everybody's on that.
Cares,
like,
man?
How does social media view me? Is like what they're on. Like, how many likes can I get?
Yeah. Let's be realistic, man. When you start seeing a statistic come out that kids are killing themselves because they don't have enough likes on social media, that's a problem.
Yes.
Right?
That really is.
That's something to be said. And I think let's also really be realistic here, right? A lot of the stuff has been happening forever, right? From dick pics to human trafficking, right? When you're talking about electronic connection. This stuff's been happening forever, man. There's been people who have been sick, and yes, it is extenuated because you can see more of it. When I grew up in New Rochelle, I probably wasn't paying attention to people who lived about an hour away, right? I didn't really have any thought, as a kid, especially like what was going on an hour away from me, right? I was super focused in just basically on my town. Now, you got a kid in Ohio who knows just as much about LA, and they're replicating LA, in Ohio, based on social profiles, right? They ain't even got to meet the person. And so everything is just content based. You can make yourself whoever the hell you want, right? I mean, yep. you could absolutely do it. I could say, hey, I'm a celebrity and post stuff up there. And if what the sad part is, if I put enough content out there and enough people with some credibility say something about it, people start to buy into it. Right? That's just how it goes now. They haven't even met somebody. Before, like when you got, superstars and stuff, it was there. It was that one person. It was more of a in-person type of thing. Now, not so much.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, everyone's so focused on online notoriety. It's just like, why? Why is this so important to you?
Exactly.
It's all they have.
And I'm like, I'll say this, like, I'm not a very likable person sometimes. Like, I can give two shits on how you view me. But, like, with a lot of kids nowadays, it's how does this person view me? How can I get them to like me? How can I get their friends to like me? How can I get them to follow me? Make me rich so that I don't have to go to a job and work, like 9 to 5 for a living. Like, I honestly, I prefer working. Like, actually going to a place, clocking in, working, and then clocking out for the day. I prefer that over than sitting on my ass and expecting somebody to pay me to do some shit. Like, that's just lazy.
Yeah, well, kids, but there's always two sides to the stone, right?
Yeah,
so there's always another part to that, and there's always the kids now that they do. Maybe they go to college, right? But they can't afford to be out because look what's going on, right? Like, technology companies run what we do. Yeah. How many people truly enjoy their jobs? I think that number's something to really look at, right? Because who's making ends meet? There is a big differential in quality of life inside this company. And I'm not pointing fingers at one side or the other, but us as people, what On Borrowed Time brings to the table for people is understand how you can make yourself better, That's one of the things that I wanted to stress. And some of these things, like I said, we could talk about this stuff for hours. We could talk about these scenarios. There's one thing that you got to do is you got to overcome it, right? So where I went from carefree, in my life, I went very much to the opposite side of careful. And that's not to discourage people, but you got to have some realistic aspects. I get it. We don't want to beat our kids. We don't want to beat things into them. We don't want to turn around and say, you need to do this. This is what you need. I mean, now with technology, kids have a lot of options. Some kids might want to go to college. Some kids can do this stuff online and be at home, right? Like there's so many options, but where's the leadership for the kids? That's the biggest problem that I have and that I've had is because we're not building leaders anymore. We're building followers, right? And to me, that's a problem because you're not trend setting anything. You just are magnifying with something else that's already been out there. And that's another thing, man. You could talk about it. Come on. How many great cartoon shows and everything did you guys watch growing up and TV shows? Like, there was always something different going on. Look at now. It's the same damn thing. When was the last time you went to a movie? Like, and I mean, besides the Marvel movies, because to me, those are always good. I'm a big Marvel geek and everything. But, I mean, when was the last time you really went for, like, original content?
That's a really good point.
Yeah, really good.
Right? Like, there's not much stuff that's like original. That's why they keep making the same damn movies all over again. Like the same thing with the video game industry, right? Like you have people like Jobs that tell people they can't play Fortnite anymore. Like, and I went into the game industry and I was super passionate about it, and I love it. Like it helped save my life during some of the darkest times of my life. Right after I had heart surgery, man. Like to not want to just die because like everything in my life was completely upside down. To not want to die, man, video games helped save my life, right? They brought me to a different place. They gave me joy. They gave me hope in something else, like something to want to overcome and achieve because I couldn't have the same type of competitive abilities that I used to, right? Like hockey was done for sure. For sure, hockey was done at that point. So now how do I reinvent myself and move on? And kids don't know how to do that now because, they grow up as like, I want to be a YouTube star. And then they fail at it. And it's like I would just equate that. I know it's not the same, right? Because people turn around and be like, no, you're being extreme. No, I'm not being extreme. Check it out. You have a kid who wanted to be a YouTube star, who wanted to be an influencer. They failed at it. That's almost like a kid who was a celebrity at a really young age and never got a gig again. You know what I'm saying? How do they translate into the next phase of their life? Take a professional athlete, blows out his knee, goes back, doesn't get the same contract. Who does he become after that? You know what I'm saying? These are things that people don't know how to do now, and this is part of our problem. It's also a big contributor to addiction, because when you're stagnant, you got time on your hands, you've lost hope, you've lost who you are, you've lost what you want to become, or and the big word there is hope, right? And every one of us wants to be a part of something. It's the reason why you two do the show.
Right.
For Cody and Marcel. Both of you feed off of each other, so therefore both of you are working towards a greater common goal. And that in essence is what the humanity strives for, is working together towards a common goal. And what's happening now is that there's a lot of divisiveness based off of race, based off of sex, based off of this orientation, based off of that, talking about that. It's just every single way to try to divide people into getting what makes them money, instead of people looking at it as, hey, man, you look different, you think differently, we can argue about this, but let's overcome that argument and get to something else, right? And so, I don't know what you guys think about that, but I know damn well it's the reason why you guys do the show.
We do this podcast because, we enjoy doing it, but we also want to really talk about real stuff. We want to be able to put out a show where people listen to it and they're like, damn, that was some real shit,
Like they get like the honest truth about shit instead of, sugarcoating it or handing them, something they want to hear. Like everybody has their own viewpoints. They have their own, way of doing things. But like you said, most kids, like they want to be a big YouTube star growing up, fail at it. And then, they're kind of just stuck at that point. Like, what do I do now? They don't know how to build a backup plan. I know how to build a backup plan for myself. That's because the way I, grew up, lived. I have no other choice. Either I move forward or I stay in the spot I'm in. And then if I'm not liking the spot I'm in, well, then I'm kind of fucked if I want to stay there. But it's just a big problem with today's society because they all have that one goal they want to go to. They don't always meet it, but they kind of just stop.
Exactly. And, and Anthony mentioned reinventing yourself. I think you got to do that from time to time. You have to reinvent yourself, whether that would be a lifestyle change, changes in your diet, changes in the way you do things, your routine. Maybe it's in your appearance. Maybe you want to lose weight. Maybe you want to have a different hairstyle. You have constantly have to grow and change in order to evolve.
Exactly. I mean, I think this book will actually be good for a lot of readers just because of just what it's titled as, On Borrowed Time. And
Yes.
it goes into deep, deep detail of, some shitty things, but it can also show them a guideline of what they can do for themselves and make themselves better. You did it. You battled addiction, open heart surgery, a lot of other shit too. I mean, my brother now, he has an enlarged heart, so he's probably going to need that. But it's my mom's working constantly. She doesn't really get to see many of her kids, older ones anyways. But it's she still has time to care for us, and along with my brother. My mom has lived a hard life. Not exactly as hard as others, but still, she's a fighter. She doesn't stop for anything. If she will do what she needs to do to get shit done.
I think with that being said, though, I think that there's something to say about that, right? And just that scenario for all of us. Due to social media, due to this heightened sense of entitlement, and, I'm not going to place it just on some people. I'm going to place it on everybody, right? But everybody always wants to tell, in essence, this is why I wrote the book. Do you guys know exactly why that book is called On Borrowed Time?
And why is that? I mean, is it because, of the whole saying, life is short?
Yeah, it goes a little deeper than that. It's on borrowed time. First of all, we're all on borrowed time, right? And I'm not talking religion right now. I'm talking about just in general, right? Because how do you get an explanation that a newborn died, right? How do you explain that, right? Comes out healthy and then dies. A 20-year-old, whatever. We're all on borrowed time. For me, on borrowed time was real simply as, man, I got a mechanical heart valve, right? It's a foreign object in my body. There's going to be a time where I'm going to need surgery, or it's just going to stop, right? There's no comfort, in all reality to every day for me. And it's been that way since 2004. So for 15 years, I've had this mechanical heart valve, and a lot of people don't know. I mean, a lot of people know now, but they didn't know, and they don't understand what comes with that. You got, on borrowed time, there was it's inside the book, but there was a quote. And I wrote this, and I talk about it in the book, and I wrote this quote on the whiteboard. So how when you go into hospitals, right? And I'll tell you guys this: I had gotten sick prior to having heart surgery, which is what prompted the heart surgery. So all this stemmed from when I was about 2 years old, and was diagnosed with a heart murmur, right? And inside the book, I go into a little bit more detail, which gives a little bit more context, but. An overview of the entire situation is, went in, played hockey, everything was fine. 21 years old, and I wake up and my finger's black. And my finger's black, and the only thing I hear is, get here now, right? And it was to get to the hospital from my cardiologist. And from that point, man, all of a sudden, I just, life was flashing before my eyes, man, and I didn't even realize it. Right, I didn't realize upon writing this book is when I started to understand the timeline. I think that's important for people because I think that there's a lot of people who have gone through trauma in their life, and it affects you, man. It does. It affects you. It changes who you are. It changes the way you view things. It changes the way that you perceive what other people are doing as well. it's because your mind literally gets altered, man. It changes just everything about you. And it's not that it's bad all the time. It absolutely can wake people up, or it's going to scare the hell out of people. And there was a phrase that I wrote. And so instead of they write your vitals on this whiteboard, and they write all these notes like for other nurses, and I would always erase it, right? Like joking around with them. Like I would write the stuff somewhere else, so that they could see it, but I would replace it, and I wrote it, and it said, it's hard to give up simple things, but simple to give up when things get hard, right? And that was something that always stuck with me, and that's inside the book. And that was the essence right there of On Borrowed Time. We're always on borrowed time, but what are you going to do with it? I could sit there and for a long time, these things ate at me. These things, broke me down. They destroyed, fabrics of my being, and I just wasn't in a good place at some points in my life, man. It's due to some not handling some of this stuff. And all of these experiences, Maurice, just like your mom, just like you, just like anybody else, you overcome it. And I think that society is part of, like, we want to rate these things, right? We want to put a level of coolness, right, to like who went through the worst shit, right? Like, oh my God, I went through this. No. I got one better. Like, most people, when they met me, they never understood any of this. Like, they knew nothing of it. And I didn't throw it in their face. And I'm not patting myself on the back for it. Just, I learned. I saw other people make mistakes. I've been blessed to have some great people around me, right? I got a great family. I got a great circle of friends, and those people that I do call friends. And I made a lot of mistakes, man, but I've been blessed to have so many really great, wonderful people around me that I make better decisions. And I said something to Keith the other day, and I said to him, I said, look, we were talking about something, and I just said, it's progress, not perfection, right? And that's something that I learned through addiction. It's progress, not perfection. Because we always want to shoot, oh, man, if it's not perfect, it's not good. Bullshit. I can tell you now, how many stuff, like, people that I met that I was, like, idolized. I've had conversations with people that I've known of that are stars, and I've been on the phone with them, and I turn to, and like, they tell me stories and stuff like that. And Steve Jobs said it best, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm just going to paraphrase the quote is, we're all human, man. Like, you think that somebody else, just because they came up with an idea, is a different person. They're not. They put their shoes on, they put pants on, they go to work, right? That's who we are as humans. We fulfill whatever our life goal is, man. We go fulfill that, and whatever path we decide to take, we carve that path. And On Borrowed Time is exactly that. What are you going to do, man? Because I have no guarantees. Tomorrow morning, I could not wake up. Right? Because if something happened with the valve. And even if I didn't have a valve, that's the craziest part. The title just speaks to everybody. Even if I don't have a mechanical heart valve, it could still be me. But focusing on this hate and everything, that's the way that, some of the way that I feel, right? I don't want to project out to everybody else or you guys, but the way that I feel that there's a lot of hate out there, and it's not just one person. It's a lot of us, if we can't have an argument and disagree, and we can't love each other for being passionate about whatever position that we're taking, then we're never going to find solutions, because we can't come to grips and accept the fact that we could be wrong. And it takes two people to have that, right? So a lot like a marriage or a relationship just in general.
Right, definitely. But, we've said the title of the book several times throughout the show, On Borrowed Time. With that being said, when can we expect the book to be released?
So Deb, who I spoke to, we're finishing up some edits on things, and she had significant heart failure that took place, and I was waiting for her to get back in the groove of things with some of the edits and things that we were doing. Part of how I wrote this book as well is best way to describe it is I wrote it in the chunks that you spoke of earlier. And part of that reason was it was easy to digest, right? Our culture now, our society is really focused in on just quick, easy. I got to look at it briefly. I got to be able to digest what it is. It's all like content marketing, right? And so the book itself was written that way, and we have a specific flow that we're following. And when that happened with her, it was more about her health than a release date. But I'm looking actually within the next 3 to 6 max. We're looking to have the full publish book come out and hit the shelves.
Awesome. I mean, it will be available also on online as well for purchase.
Yeah, online, absolutely. It's going to it'll be online. We're looking at getting in other stores at this point. A lot of it's going to be, we would love to do some speaking events, and I know Keith has some plans as to some things that he's been working on. He's been a right-hand man to me on a lot of things, and he's working on some speaking engagements and stuff like that. So we'll definitely have it, for those as well.
Awesome. That'd be great, if we can get some speaking engagements out of it, really talk to people and connect with people, really push your story forward, because I really think it's a story that, that can connect with people on so many different levels. And if you can get some speaking engagements prepared and just go around and talk to people, I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think, some of the stuff that people don't know is there's a lot of humor in it, right? It's not just specifically written like a stand-up comedy. I make fun of myself, right? I talk about, some of the worst times in my life, and I look back and I realize, this is just everything that I've gone through is just such a small fraction of life in general. But I always say this, and this sounds so down, but it hits hard. It hits so hard, right? I went from wanting to kill myself, right? And I say that with a smile on my face. I was at a point in my life, I didn't care, right? I just didn't care. It was mentally where I was that bad to delivering my daughter in the front seat of a car, right? Crazy. People don't know that, and that's a story that's in there. And just, briefly on that, if I may, that's a crazy story, man. That was in the first one that you read, right, Cody?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, that was crazy. My daughter Italia, she's 19 months now. Today. Today's her 19-month day of being alive, and that's another thing. I hate that. I'll just say a year and a half. I can't believe that I just went against my own thing, but I felt like I needed to explain it for people. But people are like, oh man, they're 79 months old. I'm like, dude, fucking, she's 6. You know what I mean? Just say she's 6 years old. I've walked around people and talking, you have these conversations with people, I'm like, oh, my baby's 39 and a half months old. Dude, that's a 3-year-old baby. Just say 3 years old. That's all you need to say, man. We got the hint. Exactly. Fucking thing's walking. You know what I'm saying? The fucking thing's walking, dude. It's talking. And the other thing, man, and it looks like you said it, right? Maurice, you look at it now and they grow up differently. Ever so much now, I still don't like other people's kids. I know people are going to get mad at me for saying that. I like my own kids. You know what I mean? It takes me a little while to warm up to other people's kids because you don't know what's going to happen. So you got to be really careful. My son's in Cub Scouts and baseball and soccer, and I help coach his baseball teams and stuff. And I'm loud, man. If you can't tell by everything about me in this and even this conversation, I'm just freaking loud. And so my sons, they're having the baseball tournaments, and I'm running up and down the sideline, man, just yelling. And these kids love it. These kids love it to show an emotion. Some of the parents are probably a little iffy. But I'll tell this one story was my son had a baseball tournament. It's freaking hot, man. And they all these kids just came together, and they're playing against other teams in this all-star collection of kids. And they're playing they're playing all these kids that play together. And the team that, of course, man, it was Sandlot, bro. And the team that my kid gets put on is the mix mash, right? Of all the kids. It turns out they made it to the championship game. And I didn't know these kids didn't play all year. We knew them for a week, right? And at the end of the game, man, we lost the game, and we're giving speeches, and we're talking to these kids, and we're pepping them up, man. It was a lot of fun. I turn around, and these 2 kids come and just sandwich me, man, giving me a hug, right? So the first instinct is just throw my hands up in the air. What the hell, man? I didn't do shit. You know what I mean? You don't know what anybody's going to say in today's day and age, right? There's cameras all over the place. So I throw my hands up. I look down at these 2 kids, and they're like, Mr. Williams, thank you. Thank you, Coach. And I'm like, oh, God, man. you got to do it for the kids, right? Like, we got to become better people for the kids. And I think that's, those are some of the initiatives or things that I've been working on up until this point, even with this book. I've been trying to work with the company trying to help gang violence and people driving drunk, addiction itself. And I know there's a lot of programs out there, but I think it's a really serious issue. I think mental health is another really, really serious issue. But I think some of these things also are spurred on the way that our society, the wheels rotate in our society, right? We all kind of get put in that proverbial gerbil wheel, and then we eventually can't find our way out. So, a lot of things that I'm doing nowadays is contributing to try and help those causes.
And then I want to read something from Keith because this is just really touching, and I think you'll definitely appreciate it as well. So Keith said, and I quote, having not seen Mrs. Williams since senior year at Iona Prep, I can truly say she was my second mom. She scared the shit out of me sometimes because we were always messing up, but she never wavered in her support. She was a beacon, and all I can say is a true thank you to Mrs. Williams. And again, it's been years, but I love her to no end, and the greatest testament to her strength is the son she has raised. My friend, my brother, Anthony. Mrs. Williams, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I didn't even realize you were raising a second son, but you did.
Oh yeah, I know she'll tear up with that because she absolutely loved him. I mean, when I talk about just a great person, man. Like I said, that's why anything that happens, Keith will be a part of at any point in time, just because he's so super talented. But I love him like a brother, man. And I know my mother when she listens to it, she will listen to the podcast. That's the funny thing. My mother's like a best friend. So some of the bad language or things that I go to, like the same way I'm talking to you is the same way I talk to my mother, right? Like, and she'll yell at me and tell me, watch my language or whatever else, but I don't have to be a different person, not even around my mother, and that's one thing I think that we don't do nowadays. And, Maurice, you touched upon this earlier, man. It sounds like you got a phenomenal relationship with your mom, in a sense, I think. And what you do have is you have a realness, which is different. Like you said something about, stuff being sugar-coated and your mom's been through it. And I think that, from what I heard from that, I think it's inspirational, man. I think that it's that hearing that when other people go through problems and you still talk about your mother with that type of infinity, man, that's to me, that's big.
Oh yeah, my Marcel, he's definitely told me a lot, about, what his mom has gone through. It's crazy. And you've been through there with everything pretty much.
Just like her, shit, just about. But I feel like I still battle with addiction, not with like drugs or alcohol, but with like video games. Just it takes me away from like all the pains and my responsibilities of being an adult and just the real world. But I'm also the type of person, like, I'll look at my responsibilities and I'll also look at the problems and figure out a way to solve them. I exactly don't run from them like most people, but I think that's just one of my good qualities. But my mom, she's with just me alone, she's had so many problems, and just her last husband too. Good times.
There's definitely a lot to be said for the way that kids grow up now. But also too is, come on, we got a real issue at hand, man. There's a lot of divorces. There's a lot of that stuff is happening more. People marry on money. And it really does. It affects the kids. That's my soapbox on that, because everything we do affects the kids at some point in time. But I was just thinking of this actually as we were talking, as Keith was saying it about my mom. You guys remember this, man? We used to go to Blockbuster, right? And like the movie stores, right? And I think it was like Hollywood Movie was one of them, and then there was Blockbuster, right? And so we would go hang out, and my mom would give Keith this look, and I swear there was nothing funnier than watching another dude kind of curl up and get behind me, dude, because he didn't know if he was going to get whacked with the spoon or not. Like it was no holds bar when it came time with my mom, dude. Like he was susceptible, you know what I mean? And if you ask his mom, she agreed with it. It was cool, right? If he was in swiping distance, it could happen.
But I mean, with Keith though, like, dude's an amazing talent. You know, I mean, he's helping us out with writing some segments, you know, for our TV show that we're doing. That we're filming right now currently, and it's just great stuff. And it's just like, you know, like it just jumps out at me when I'm reading it, you know, and I'm going over my lines with him, and I'm just like, damn, this is good shit. Like, and I keep saying this, you know, I've said it before on this show, and just to other people, you know, Keith is super talented, and I will do whatever I can to make sure that talent is showcased.
Like, honestly, I would say Keith is probably the best so far scriptwriter I have ever seen work, or even just seen some of his work. I mean, I took a film class, I think my senior year in high school, and some of those shit that we wrote in high school that just really wasn't, you know, worth anything. But like when I read stuff from Keith, I mean, that shit is gold. I read it and I'm dying laughing.
We would you got to understand, every day, you know, with Keith as well was kind of like being in a movie, right? And that's kind of what it felt like going through high school. It kind of felt like a movie. It really did, because I was so into sports. My name was known in school, right? Like I was a pretty decent, you know, player. And Keith was my best friend, man, but he was on the total end of that spectrum. Like he wasn't all into the sports and everything else like that. And we were like polar opposites. And man, there were days we would just laugh the whole day. I know a lot of people got those stories, but we would just laugh the whole day. Like it was just nonstop. And it wasn't being cruel to other people. We had so many fun. I mean, Keith will tell you stories, man, of things that we did. And we'll always give the shout out to Mr. Bean. That is one of the most memorable experiences. Keith still talks about that to this day. Actually, when I reconnected with Keith a little while back, he immediately brought up that story from high school, which was hysterical. And we still laughed about it as we were on the phone. We just laughed about it. So, but no, the book is crazy. I'll tell you, as far as content writing, like I said, I told you earlier, my degree is in game design, and I've been helping a company called Razor Edge Games. I've been helping them build all their marketing platforms and also running their writing team. And I have a lot of writers on that team. I think I have 21 or 22 like writers on that team, and they all do different stuff. Some of them are just specifically, you know, copyright. Some of them are creative writing. There's a whole bunch of disciplines that make up that team. And Keith, by far, with stuff, it's instantaneously too. And that's why I love it and I have a lot of fun, is because we do it the same way. We go really, we can get stuff done, a big amount of content done in a short period of time.
And that's another thing too. You know, you mentioned that you went to school for game design, and I'm just curious, like, what kind of games have you worked on throughout your career in game design?
So when I graduated in 2015, I actually had started a project called Angelus. And this project Angelus was one that I created this small company called Meditational Gaming. It was a bunch of people that, you know, we went through school together. And like kind of a side note was I went through for the game design degree, and I really wanted to focus on the leadership, because at that point in time I understood that the game industry really was lacking leadership, right? This was a big thing that was going across. There were some huge games that were coming up, you know, right? Oh, think about the last 20 years, right? It's been huge. Like the game industry itself has been immense. There's so much money to make, but look kind of what happened to it, right? So, Marcel, you made a absolute valid point prior, which was you play games to get you out of that funk, which was what happened with me. But what happens to kids now is they get stuck between synthetic and reality. right? There's a synthetic world, and then there's reality. And these kids want to take that game to it. And look at the way games are made. They're all short, choppy, easy, digestible, right? Like everybody wants to play these, like PUBG and these battle royale style games, even games that had nothing to do with that. Look at the industry shift, right? And not to say that I saw all of that happening, but I saw a lot of the creative stuff and leadership in that sense going back. I started to understand that narrative was going away, right? Which is, think about how we all learn. Think about humans learn. It's all been through stories, right? Some sort of narrative. Think about cavemen. How did they speak? They drew stuff on the wall. Look around the world. That's how we communicated. Now we use electronic devices, right? So our communication is different now than the way that it was. And it's the same thing with how we approach even games. So when I was going through school, I actually had left school with a leadership and team building award. And I won the Academic Achievement Award. And yeah, you know what? I'm proud of that, right? And a lot of people say that. I left, and it was, most likely to succeed and leadership and team building. And I carried that on past that. So I started this little company called Meditational Gaming. It was just more of a group than a company, right? And we ended up building this game, Angelus, and it didn't really go too far on the part of it, right? Like, not everything you can touch is absolute gold. We still have it. I've been in contact with a lot of the guys that we were working on it with, and, we got to make a decision if we want to start to revamp it. But I worked on that. Built AJ's Magic Marble. Working now on another one with a couple guys on an aside, and this one is called Bing Bang Boop. That's the initial title right now, but it's going to be kind of like a mini golf game in essence, but it's a really wacky, twisted type of mini golf game that I'm actually working on as well. So that's in the works now. But those were the games that we were working on. Right now, I'm director of marketing and writing for Razor Edge Games. It's been around for a while. I initially met the owner in November of 2018, and he asked me if I wanted to help him, and I told him, I'll give him all the expertise that I have. And I now run a marketing division of 7 and a writing team of 21. So it's pretty sizable. I grew that writing team from, I think it was like 7 people, 7, 8 tops, that grew that to 21, and the marketing team was generally like, it actually didn't exist when I got there. Then I was part of it. So I added 6 people onto the marketing team as well. So trying to help them building, and they're in the stages now of possibly releasing a game, Eden Falling. They're looking with publishers. They're dealing with, a couple of those, back end things that have to go on as far as the business side. And, I'll give an update as to when that is going to be released. But that's really, really big game, actually. It's a digital tabletop experience with all RPG elements to it. So you're still getting your narrative. You're still getting the ability to pop in and out quickly. You're still being able to customize your experience, but there's no shortcuts in it, right? The way the game was built, Mike Weiser, the owner and the creator of the game, brilliant guy, used to work in the game industry back in the 90s, took a hiatus from it, kind of went into real estate, which a lot of people did. He had some failed projects like a lot of other creative people, and the man did a great job and has been trying to build this game with the team for quite a while. And I've been blessed to be a part of it, man, and help them through the process. And now they're getting over that last little stretch. But from the game perspective, these are some big ones that, we're looking to have roll out.
Awesome. Definitely getting some shit done there, I would say.
Yeah, that and a music app called Yayway. There's that one should be coming as well. That one's been such a difficult thing, but one of the ones I'm really proud of, guys, is from a company, Cielo XR. It's a brand new company that's up and coming, and it's amazing what the team has been able to do there. Dennis Campo's the owner there, and he had a vision and asked me if I could help him build his vision, and I said absolutely. And it is training software, for schools, and even not so much just schools, but to help kids with not just, not necessarily disabilities, just language barriers, right? Kids coming over from different countries, everything else, and then also including the social aspects of that as well. And the intention is to have it in an AR and a VR platform. But for right now, what we want to do is we want to be able to roll this out to schools, and that actually is pretty close to having an MVP done for the public to judge whether or not they want it. So that is a whole nother idea, and that's, about helping the kids, man. I told you, life changes. I was an extremely selfish person prior, which is why I made so many damn mistakes. But, some of those experiences kind of changed where my heart is, and it goes definitely towards, educating if I can and trying to help people if I can. And that's where I'm at now.
Damn, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
That's fucking more than what I could handle. Holy shit. But,
yeah, and then now think about that. In that process, I was writing on borrowed time. So like how the process of on borrowed time actually unfolded was I wrote a 52,000 word manuscript. Like just started blast in between all this, right? Like in between working, and I've been doing a lot of consulting, right? And that's what I was doing. And the game company themselves doesn't actually pay me, right? Like they don't actually pay me because part of it I understood, like I wanted to help him. And I don't get actual physical money from him, but I wanted to help him build his team and get his dream out there because I wanted to do it. I found it interesting, right? Like it was an obstacle that I felt that I could overcome. And there would be some benefits if I did overcome that obstacle. And so I started helping them with that. And now, they're getting in the process of dealing with some publishers and stuff. And in between all of this, I was writing on borrowed time. So I wrote that. And then, like I said, I met Deb and we had this, great idea and a great flow that went with everything. And we've just worked together on hammering this out to be the best possible product that we could put out there. And, one of the best things that I heard in the last couple of weeks, besides all this, amazing feedback. I mean, everybody's been so generous, and you never know on these things, right? Like who's telling the truth and who's not, right? Because like you're like, hey man, would you review my book? And then people are like, man, this is a really good book, and you left me at a cliffhanger, and you hear all these wonderful things, and you're like, oh, are they just being nice? Well, there was somebody who was in the hospital. I don't even know who they were. Don't know who they were, and it was. Deb actually, it was somebody that she knows, and she's an older woman, and she's as lively as all can be. And she had given it to a friend who was really dealing with some real issues in the hospital and just, really kind of down and out. And she said, hey, why don't you read this and let me know, right? Like here's a litmus test, right? So like if this is going to help somebody who's kind of in a bad spot or, maybe needs something that can to give them some hope or whatever, then let's see what we got here. And she gave it to this lady, and I can read the review directly off of the messages that she sent, which was, this book is amazing, and we wish them all the best of luck, and how can I help? And, forget the first part of all that. The end sentence, man, that's how you know you made a difference. That right there, how can I help, right? That book had that effect on people in multiple cases. How can I help? Right? Because I'm not asking or pointing at people. I'm not trying to tear people down and cause more division. I'm trying to bring people together to make it livable. Right? So that was the whole point of it. So how could I help was the absolute excuse. And when you guys, asked me to come on here, I mean, damn, I was really, really excited, coming into it. And I'm like, what can I do? Right? You guys are helping me. What can I do? And so, absolutely. I just started telling people all over the place. I wanted to bring more attention to the show, bring more attention to what you guys are doing. You're allowing people like me to come on here, and talk. Everywhere you go, everything is so it's stringent, right? We got to stick by this specific guideline. We got to do this, and you guys are actually like letting me do a show on your show, and that's crazy, And I'm blessed. I mean, I can't thank you guys enough for that. But it has been. More and more people having the ability to tell them, not being told what they need to say in that sense, but contributing to it. I mean, I love the platform that you guys are building.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. And that's the thing about this show and what I think makes our show so great is, anyone's welcome to come on. And if they have, something to promote, whether that would be, like you with your book, or if they got like a movie coming out, or they got something coming out, they can come on and talk about it, and share their story, share who they are, because, I feel like that our show is not just a podcast, it's also talking about life and sharing stories, because I think that's what people need more of, because, I feel like certain podcasts, they just follow, a specific path that suits them. But with this show, you never know what you're gonna get, because this is two normal guys who have these stories to share with everybody, and and we don't care what people think, really. But we, at the same time, we hope to at least help someone out there that's going through a tough time, and maybe they just throw on our podcast and it brightens up their day. They're like, wow, that was a great show. Now I'm in a better mood.
Or even like just with our show period, we're not along a guideline of what we need to say, what needs to be said, what topics we need to talk about. We're just free all around to just say whatever the fuck we want, and we don't have a specific guideline at all. We just, use whatever language we want. If we want to speak in Mandarin, we'll speak in Mandarin. Because somebody out in the foreign language.
that would cause some confusion. But you know what? I am really curious, right? I am really curious about this. You guys both play video games. You guys both enjoy it. What's your honest views on virtual reality, right? Because we say we have enough problems now. Just imagine, the world with all this virtual reality stuff. What happens, right? Like, so we want to play that game. So this is a fun little game. But I want to know both of your thoughts on virtual reality, where it is, and do you actually think it's going to be something, and when? Right? That's a question I want to know from both of you.
I'm going to go first since I have my own virtual reality headset for my PlayStation. It's not here, but it's at home. I do like it. Some of the graphics does need to be touched up, but it kind of feels like I'm actually in there. I'm actually, playing the game as myself, but at the same time I'm thinking they're going to need to do a lot of changing to just the screen proportion and even just the eyes and the coloring, because I can only play it for so many hours. I think two at the max before I start getting a headache.
Either that or you're going to throw up.
Yep, exactly. But I feel like give it another few more years, if that, maybe 5, and they'll actually make something really great out of it. I know I've seen a lot of things out there about virtual reality, but at the same time, it's they're kind of still baby stepping it. There's still a lot of room to improve on where it's at.
As far as how I feel about it, it's cool visually, but at the same time, I feel like if you do the VR stuff, it's virtual reality, but at the same time, it's not actual reality, and I feel like, people could get caught up in that whole world, so to speak, but that's the thing, it's not really happening, it's not real, but it's so easy to get caught up in it because of what it is, and it's the same way as we can get caught up in a movie and that whole universe. But yeah, when you really break it down, I think VR should be used in limited capacity, because like Marcel said, he gets headaches after using it so long.
Well, yeah, that's part of the sightlines. They've come a long way, right? But if we look at that, what was that? Virtual Boy, right? Remember that back in the day, was absolutely horrendous, right?
Right.
And it's made some strides. It's come up. I don't think it's anywhere near what I would want to do. When I talk virtual reality, they all talk about this Ready Player One, right? I'm talking about I'll have fun with virtual reality when I can afford, or when there's a full suit I can wear. You know what I mean? So if I'm going to teabag somebody in a game, I'm going to teabag them myself. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm going to be running around. That's the virtual reality I want, right? I don't want to just kind of run in place. You know what I mean? I want to be immersed in that the right way, right? And it's not there yet. It's extremely hard to have. Not everybody can have a full VR body set. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if I'm going to do some stuff like that, I want to be, I definitely want it to be that way. But we're still a while away. But I'm always interested in seeing kind of where, avid game players are, right? and seeing kind of what they're looking for. I guess, just, for you guys, when you're looking for a book or a game, are you looking for an enticing narrative, or, are you picking up that, book or game and saying, hey, yeah, I already know what I'm going into. What's driving you towards those things, right? Like, those are questions I ask on a regular basis. And, all the feedback I can ever get is always what's really interesting. Like, what are you guys looking for? Is narrative still something that you value when you pick up a book or a game or anything, right? The story behind it. Is that actually what draws you to it, or just what it is?
I know for me personally, it's always about the story. A good story that I can just be fully invested in. Because to me, that's what really interests me, because, anybody can, think of something to do a game on or a movie on and stuff, but if you don't have a good story, if you don't have a strong selling point for people to get invested in, then it's not going to sell, But yeah, a good story is what really drives me to want to watch a movie or buy that video game or listen to a song, because of the story they tell within the content of, the scenes or the lyrics or in the game itself.
Even I myself, I go into a little bit of the storyline, who you play as, why, in the game they're doing the things they're doing. And I also go for how the gameplay is. What kind of neat features can you do in the gameplay? Is it just, first-person shooter? You pick up any guns that, they're just laying out in the battlefield, or can you, customize your own and then take it out there? That's kind of some things I look for, or even just like an RPG or open world game, and I could just loot. That's just something I look forward to.
Are you guys into the battle royales? Are you guys into the drop in, die in 30 seconds and then wait another 15 minutes before you can go play again?
No, I played some of that on Call of Duty. It wasn't exactly 30 seconds. It was
Call of Duty did it, man. Call of Duty sold out, bro. They went for the first person shooter. Oh shit, we got to do a battle royale now. Battlefield, bro. Battlefield, of all games, that was the biggest shock I ever seen in my entire life. That Battlefield created a battle royale style, and they have tanks. Like, how do you do that? It just doesn't make any sense. But these are things that people want to play, and I'm dumbfounded.
God damn it!
When it comes down to Call of Duty, I have no interest in the battle royale bullshit.
Neither do I. I play a lot of multiplayer and zombies.
Right. But I'll do, the multiplayer team deathmatch, free for all, safeguard and shit like that. But no, I ain't about that battle royale bullshit. No. But that's the thing. If I want to play something like that, Call of Duty is definitely my go-to, for that kind of style of gameplay. But if I want a good story and stuff, I'll play some, classic storytelling games. Grand Theft Auto.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite? No, not Grand Theft Auto. That don't count. That's a huge sandbox.
Well, I'm just saying with Grand Theft Auto, it's not known for its storytelling elements. But especially with the last title they put out with 5, I think they told a good story, with 5. But as far as my all-time favorite, I have to say the Metal Gear Solid series.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Mm. Yeah, Kazama. Yep. Metal Gear.
Yeah, that is my all-time favorite series. I will put that series up against anything.
The new God of War?
Oh, God of War, that's my shit.
I think we're there's a really underrated game that came out before, right? It came out a little while ago, it was a while back actually, which was Horizon. And that was a really underrated game kind of when it came out. But, to me, it had so many, ties with the way that God of War did, right? And it was kind of unintentional. But God of War, oh my gosh, the fourth one was insane. But go ahead, man. What's yours? Because I didn't get it. I didn't get to give you the chance. But God of War sparked something. So is that your choice?
That's my all-time favorite. I played every single one that came out. I love them. I'll play those fuckers till like my hands cramp.
Well, all right. Where does Borderlands rank on your list?
On my list, I would say I actually just like recently bought the remastered first one and the prequel and the second one for my PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
And I also have a third one pre-ordered. But where they line
the Handsome
up,
Jack collection?
Oh, I have that Jack collection.
Yep.
Oh, I'd say Jack is number 2. Just the Jack series is number 2. Ratchet and Clank was another good one I loved fucking playing.
Yeah?
I tried to get my brothers to play it. Nope. Little fuckers.
Ratchet and Clank. Like Borderlands is up there for me, right? And it took me a while because, like, so all disclosure, right? Gears of War was my jam when that came out, and I think
yes. Mm-hmm.
That's
so let me. This was in the beginning of the addiction days, right? But these are things that changed my life, and I say this with full transparency. Gears of War was a reason that I wanted to get into the game industry, and I wanted to get into the game industry because of people like Cliff Bleszinski, David Jaffe, right? These were guys, right? David Jaffe's the guy who created Sweet Tooth, right? He's one of the guys who created God of War, right? So you should know who I'm talking about. I actually have a signature from him on a sticker for a game that he created, Drawn to Death. I met with him. I was just like, I really like this guy, dude. Like, he was super cool. I conversed with him a little bit back and forth on Twitter, like nothing like personal or super friendly. Just I sent him a message saying, hey, thanks, man. Like, you were one of the reasons why I really wanted to get into the industry. And he said, thank you, man. That means a lot, and I have no problem telling people that. I think that they need to hear that. I just always feel like now, with all these people, it's like people want to be them and replace them as opposed to enjoying what they did. You know what I mean? And everybody wants to become the next person because you can, or they think you can. They don't pay attention to the actual journey. They just want to go to the destination, right? They just see that these people make games. I mean, but look at it. Not everybody creates monster games, the first time, second, third, fourth, fifth, or 20th time that they try. They fail a lot more than what actually comes out, right? That's just real life. So once again, going back even so to On Borrowed Time is a way to, how do you reinvent yourself? If you fail 10 times, what's going to make the 11th any different? Can you make that experience different? Can you reinvent yourself to do something that you weren't doing the first 10 times? You've got to become a new person, right? So like through the book, when you look at it, it's going from, stuff that happened earlier to the surgery, to addiction, to parenthood, right? Through just understanding who I am as a human being. Those are all transformations. Those are all reinventions. Acceptance is a key to happiness in a lot of ways, man. Like, if this book helps one person, from blowing their brains out, or this book helps one person understand how to deal with somebody else who's dealt with it, then I won. I mean, let's be realistic. Obviously everybody wants to make money. That's what makes the world go round, unfortunately, right? You can't love everybody and live off of that. You can, right? But if you want other things, money's part of who we are, right? It's a cold hard fact. It's always been. We like to make it seem like this is brand new. This ain't a new concept. Cavemen were trading rocks and animals. You know what I'm saying? And that they were doing currency that way. It just changes who it is. And so, man, it's inspired a lot of stuff that I've done at this point. And I just now with games to circle back. Now with games, oh God, man, I look at stuff that makes me laugh. Right? I look at storylines that I can get engrossed in. I hop in for those little shooters, man. I don't know if anybody's ever played a game called Smite, but Smite is like a budget League of Legends, right? I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I mean like League of Legends had their upcoming from, a game called Dota and Dota 2, right? Like that's League of Legends took over kind of that realm. And then, I mean, you see the stuff that's going on with like esports and Overwatch, right? But we look back to like addiction, right? And this is what it's a big problem now, even for gamers, right? But once again, it's easy just to point at somebody and say, "Oh, you play too many video games, you have a problem," right? That's really hard to do. That's really hard to do to people. So, these guys that I reached out to said, "Thank you because you inspired me." These are reasons why I got into games. And it was in 2012 when I finally said, "Hey, I want to go for a game design degree." And the reason why I went for it was those two gentlemen, was the reason why I went and got that piece of paper. I'm really proud of that piece of paper, but I went and did it. And through that time, I was going through a separation. There was a lot of things going on. Like, life wasn't peachy and rosy, man. This wasn't everything is okay. Everything just worked out. Man, I was 3,000 miles away from any family that I had known. I now am a father. I got a marriage that wasn't going well, right? I had like all this stuff that was going on, and it's like, are you for real? Like, I hear people talk about it. Yeah, I get it. Other things are really bad. I'm blessed for what I went through. I'm definitely blessed for what I went through. But, because it made me who I am. It's made the relationship with my wife and my kids. It made us, it's built us. Is everything perfect? Come on, man. Nobody lives in that world.
No.
Nobody's world's perfect. But I'll tell you what, my experiences shaped me to be a person that could possibly help other people. And I'll take advantage of that if I can, in the best ways possible. As long as the intentions are good, I think that everybody benefits. But, back to it all, yeah, this games is what helped me just understand what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do was bring the fun of what we experience with games back to real life. And that's what I want. So, I make a lot of jokes and we talk about it, but we got to find fun in what we do, which was part of the reason why I was saying this was, you guys coming on here, you enjoy it,
yes.
Right? You're working towards that common goal, like we said earlier, and that's absolutely hands down the way that I want my life to be for the rest of my life. Whether I'm rich or poor, I want to be able to have that happiness. And right now I got it, and I'm going to hold on to it as long as I can.
On Borrowed Time, coming soon. Anthony, is there any social media or anything else you want to plug before we wrap this up?
You can find me. I'm going to definitely be putting out all of the links. But you can find me, Anthony J. Williams III, on social media, or you can find the Independent Mouth, which is on Facebook. I am on Twitter at _ Anthony III. That is my Twitter. And Facebook is Anthony Williams III. And that is me, man. You'll see me there, and join up, reach out, send messages if you like. I'm more than happy to. I'm definitely going to be looking for people to read through just different sections of the book, but a little bit before, like a pre-release, just to get some intended feedback, maybe some quotes if anybody's interested. You can all reach out. Otherwise, yeah, you can always go to the Independent Mouth and subscribe to what I put out there at the Independent Mouth, and that is theindependentmouth.com. And you can sign up there and everything and join in. And if you want to connect with me, I will definitely take the time to reach out to you personally. So no automated bots, but you want to reach out to me, reach out, and we can eventually exchange information and have a conversation.
Awesome. Anthony, I'd like to thank you for coming on to the podcast. It was definitely a fun interview. I think we went in over an hour and 20-some minutes, but great time, and we definitely look forward to the book being released, and we'll definitely have to have you back on at some point.
Oh, absolutely, guys. Thank you so much for having me on. I truly appreciate it. And let me know where I can get my copy of this so I can promote the show. Absolutely, besides what's there. And I want to blast all of this out through all of my channels, because this has been, for anybody who wants to come on, this show has been a blessing to come on and be able to have the open platform to do what we do. So I want to thank you guys so much for this opportunity.
Yes, we will definitely be sending you the link to this episode. And remember, to everybody listening, you can find the CNN podcast on CastBox. That's the one stop for all the episodes of the CNN podcast.